podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to ALA Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined by Mr. Guy Drinkle. How are you, sir?
No football one. It's a bit boring.
It is a bit boring. There has been football, but you with your European bias and your love of the English national team, probably not paying attention to the Copa America, where Darwin Núñez is brewing up a bit of a storm with his performances.
Not sure if it was on a regular time and on actual TV, but you know.
So we're almost through the second match day in the Copa. Tonight we will have Colombia versus Costa Rica, Paraguay versus Brazil, and then tomorrow the last match day will begin. Argentina, Peru, Canada, Chile is tomorrow. Then Sunday is Mexico, Ecuador, Jamaica, Venezuela. Monday we will have Bolivia, Panama, USA, Uruguay. USA need to win. And then the final games will be on Tuesday night. It is Brazil versus Colombia and Costa Rica, Paraguay. But the Euros are back tomorrow. So we thought we'd take a look because Carl is currently in transit to become our man on the ground in Germany. So myself and yourself thought we'd have a look at the bracket. But before we get to that, let's have a wee look at England, who we have some details on this from Skybet, who have sent us on some information that we can share a little bit of. Which nation has been the biggest underperformers so far? Now, bear in mind, this is only collated from English fans and their opinions. Portugal, 4%. Italy, 7%. The Netherlands, 7%. Only 8% said France, which is just staggering to me, because for me, they're number one. 16% said Belgium, and 58% said England. Now, look, we fully agree England have massively underperformed. And, I mean, the thing is, Guy, there doesn't seem to be just any one reason for that, but the biggest reason does seem to be the manager.
Oh God, I think Southgate's cost England. I think he definitely cost them a spot in the World Cup final when Croatia beat them in the semi-final. And you go 1-0 up against a very old Italy team in your home stadium, and then just go on the back foot for the rest of the game. I think if you had a progressive manager, an Eddie Howe or a Graham Potter, I know it was probably too early for them back in 2017 when he got given the job. Nearly said elected there. There's too much political stuff going on in the world. Yeah, I think if they just had not a championship manager, I think they'd at least have a Euros to talk about. And again, when we get into the bracket in a few minutes, they should at least be another semi-final final.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at his track record, like you said, he gets the job. When Big Sam gets fired, Southgate had obviously been at Middlesbrough, not done a very good job there, spent a lot of money and eventually took them down. Then he's out of the game for a couple of years. Then he gets the England under-21 job because he's an FA yes man. He gets overlooked when Hodgson steps down and Allardyce gets the job. Allardyce then gets caught in some sort of weird media sting, potentially willing to take a backhander. He gets removed, and then Southgate gets the job. So his first tournament is that 2018 World Cup in Russia. England finished second in the group. They're in a group with Belgium, Tunisia, and Panama. So being realistic, second was the worst they were going to do in that group. They beat Tunisia, needing a very late Harry Kane goal. They hammer Panama, and then they lose to Belgium. The first good team they played, they lost. They go into the knockout phases. They take on a fairly mediocre Colombia and need penalties to beat them. They beat Sweden 2-0, and then they play Croatia and lose. They go into the third and fourth place playoff and lose. So, being honest, they played three good teams, Belgium twice, and Croatia and lost all three. We go to Euro 2020. Obviously, like you said, they have the advantage of playing on home soil in this weird Euros that spread all across Europe. In their group, they get Croatia, the Czech Republic, and Scotland. They do beat Croatia, but as myself and Carol and yourself have discussed a couple of times, Croatia don't tend to turn up at the Euros, but it's still a good result. They draw with Scotland, and then they beat the Czech Republic. In the knockout phases, they beat Germany, but that's a really, really weak German team. Then they hammer the Ukraine. They beat Denmark after extra time. Really easy path to the final. They go 1-0 up in the final, very, very early. Luke Shaw scores on 2 minutes at Wembley in front of the English fans. Bonucci scores on 67, and England almost immediately set out to play for penalties.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the mindset. We move forward into the... So you could say they beat a good Croatia team. That's the first big tournament win over a good team for him. But other than that, a very easy path to the final. And then we land at the last World Cup. And again, the Southgate issues come to the fore. So they hammer Iran, they draw with the USA and get overrun in midfield. And then they beat a very, very mediocre Welsh team who finished bottom of the group at 1 point. In the knockouts, they draw Senegal. It's a pretty poor Senegal team. And they beat them. And then they play France, the first good team they're going to face in this competition, and they lose. And it wasn't just the fact that they lost, it was how they lost. Like, Tchouameni puts France 1-0. England desperately tried to get back in the game, played really well up until they scored, and then immediately reverted back to that mindset of, well, let's see this out. And Olivier Giroud scores in the 78th minute and England are done. And then we come into this tournament. They play Serbia, they score, and it's immediately everybody behind the ball. They play Denmark, they score, it's immediately everybody behind the ball. They play Slovenia, they can't score. They've scored 2 goals in this competition. Both of them have been very, very fortunate. And the frustrating thing, and this is like, I take great joy from England losing, but a lot of my friends are English, and I want to see you guys happy. But I also look at that squad, and as a football fan, I look at that squad and think, I just want to see that squad play to its potential.
Mm.
And it's not being allowed to do that.
Yeah, it's very strange, because you mean, if it was get ahead, then drop back, I think that'd be fine if we had an out ball. But this England side's never really had that. I mean, we've had Jack Grealish on the left, who is good at certain things, but he's not fast, not an out ball. Harry Kane's never been fast. He's obviously can hold up the ball. That's one of his elite characteristics. But he's not going to run away from anyone. And under right, Saka's quick, but he's not lightning quick. And we've had, well, Rashford's a very strange player, but we've had Rashford in that entire time. We've got Anthony Gordon this tournament. It seems like we've just set up in this way where we think, right, we'll catch them on the break, but there is nothing or no one to break. And it I know it's just people on podcasts saying it, but it's such an easy fix. Just put Gordon on the left. If you have to leave out Foden or Bellingham or even Saka, so be it. It's for the betterment of the team. They'll still cut. And if you actually trust your bench, which has many world-class stars on it, or potentially world-class stars on it, you'll keep the first team fresh, you'll get the others involved, then you can just play whoever's in the best form. But Anthony Gordon should have came into this tournament just being England's outlet. It's very strange, but you mentioned it about England playing well. I mean, when I was a kid, apart from 2002, where I supported Brazil for some reason, but it made me fall in love with football. Ronaldinho's doing mad stuff. But 04, 06, I remember crying on the sofa watching it. 08, we obviously didn't get to somehow, even though Gerrard and Lampard, etc., all in their peak. So that was actually impressively done. But since then, I mean, Roy Hodgson will drain the life out of anything and everything. I've just not been bothered. Like, these England games, I've not really celebrated when we've scored. Even the last few tournaments, maybe it is just hanging over from the Hodgson hate, but I've just not been bothered. Like, I celebrated when Italy won. I've got money on Spain to win this tournament because they had good odds. I mean, it's looking like a actual genius move at the minute.
A good bet.
Yeah, I put 20 quid on them and Argentina to win the Copa. So if Spain win and Argentina bottle it, I will be fuming. But I'm more excited about Spain winning than England potentially winning, which is almost sad to think because I'm obviously not a Scouser and I understand the Scouse logic behind it, but I fell out of love with it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the case with a lot of people. I mean, you know, coming into this tournament, there was a couple of things you had to praise Southgate for. One was the decision to leave out Harry Maguire, who Maguire has always been solid for England, but he's been terrible at club level for a number of years now, and he isn't even first choice in a really, really bad Manchester United team. So that he deserved praise for. He left out Henderson, his vice-captain. And again, he deserved praise for it. Henderson had been really poor for Liverpool for years, had gone to Saudi and was really poor, and then moved to Ajax and was really poor. He was struggling at much lower levels than the Premier League. And Southgate made the decision to leave him out, and he deserved credit for it. And then the third one was Calvin Phillips, who has been dreadful for a couple of years now and was brought to the World Cup even though he wasn't fit, and that was a waste of a squad position. The one big exclusion that I did question was Rashford, and it's for exactly what you were saying. It's that lack of an outlet. But when I looked at the squad and I saw Anthony Gordon's name, I saw someone who had a much better season than Rashford and also offers that outlet. And I saw Iberiezi there, who, again, not the outlet, but much better season than Rashford. So I'm looking at that group and I'm thinking, okay, you've got Kane, Toney and Watkins as your number 9. Now, I would question the inclusion of Toney on form, but that's 3 really good number 9s. You've got Saka, Palmer, and Bowen for the right wing. Why you need 3, I don't know. But you've got all 3 of them. They're all coming off very good seasons. And Bowen also can play through the middle if need be, which is another reason the Toney thing was strange. But nonetheless, then you've got Bellingham and Foden as 10s. Obviously, Foden can play wherever you need him to. And then you've got Gordon and Eze. So I'm thinking, no matter what, you've got the group that can answer any question. You can put together multiple really good front fours from that group. But when you're talking about partnerships and groups, and we always talk about it with midfields or with centre-backs or with, a full-back winger type of pairing, it's not necessarily the 2 best individuals. It's whose skill sets mesh the best. And while unquestionably the best 4 players England can put on the pitch are Saka, Bellingham, Foden and Kane, that's not the 4-man group that has the best chemistry. It doesn't mesh all that well because there isn't blinding pace in that group. Saka's fast, but he's not lightning. Bellingham's not the quickest in the world. He's not slow, but he's not like a rapid player. Mm-hmm. Neither's Foden. And Foden is sort of like he's more tricky than quick. So he's got a good burst over 3 yards and then he can turn and go a different direction quite quickly. But if you ask him to run in a straight line, there's probably a dozen players in that squad who are quicker than him. And Kane doesn't have any pace. So you were looking for someone to be that outball. You're also looking for someone that's willing to hold the width, because when you look behind him at the other partnership he needs to have with his left back, England are playing Kieran Trippier, who offers nothing going forward from the left because he's a right back with no left foot, who's also nearly 34 years of age and coming off a bad season. So the decision to only bring Luke Shaw as a recognised left back who's injured, and we don't know if and when he's going to be back, that has a knock-on effect on your left winger. If you're going to play a right-footed player at left back who doesn't offer much going forward, well, your best option is to pick the best defensive option from that group, because then you can go with a more attacking option on your right. And if anything, if he wanted Trippier and Walker to be his fullbacks, swapping them would make much more sense than playing them the way he has been. So he's setting them up badly at the back. I do like the centre-back pairing. I think it's worked pretty well.
Yeah.
But the fullbacks have been a major issue. And that then has that knock-on effect in attack. So you've got issues on the flanks with a lack of real pace, a lack of an outlet, and then that lack of cohesion, because Saka doesn't have the overlapper that he needs. Like, Ben White is not a great attacking player for Arsenal, but he's a clever attacking player. And Arteta has trained him to make certain runs over and over again. Kyle Walker doesn't make those runs, and Saka at times picks the ball up, squares the fullback, shifts inside, and he's waiting for the overlap, which Ben White will make every single time for Arsenal. Every time. And Walker doesn't, because Walker either leaves it too late to go because he relies too heavily on his pace, or he just doesn't make the run because he's not the smartest player in the world. And then on the left, Foden, despite being left-footed, wants to play narrow, but you're not getting anything going down the flank. So you've got to find a proper balance. Even, like, again, switching the the wingers would probably work better, because Saka is a more natural winger than Foden.
Yeah, and Jude and Foden have been in that left half space, have just been stepping on each other's toes. If Saka plays there, obviously he's not really played on the left-hand side since his very early Arsenal days, but he will obviously go naturally wider. You'd allow whoever the hell you're playing as the 10 to gain the left half space, and he can go wide around that person there, which means the left back doesn't actually have to provide width. It can just be the winger, and they can combine there. And then if it's Palmer on the right, who obviously did quite well in his sub appearance, or probably Bowen because it's Gareth Southgate, and just do random stuff. There's a lot of options in this, and you mentioned the left back there. Ben Chilwell's not someone I rate highly, but he's been in England squads for ages. Tyreek Mitchell's been probably one of the top 5, 10 at a push left backs in the country.
Yeah.
There is options there. It's not just Luke Shaw or bust. Now, if anything, I'd say Tyreek Mitchell's quite a similar defender to Luke Shaw. It just doesn't make sense that he's not had a chance in 4 years. He's probably been as a Crystal Palace starter to even be in a squad. Like, left backs obviously are shortest position, and he's a Premier League starting every week there. Like, you don't need your left back to be world class.
And he's shown he can play as a fullback or a wing back. So he does offer you that flexibility. But, you know, I look at the squad and I see it's in the midfield area, for example. I see Kobe Mainoo come into the competition with, I think, 3 or 4 caps, and Adam Wharton was uncapped before the call-up and has obviously gotten his first cap just before the tournament. So if you're willing to do that, are you not willing to do it in other positions? Because what about Lewis Hall, as an example, who ended the season in great form for Newcastle? And I know he doesn't have a ton of experience, but he's a really good footballer, and he's a natural left-back. You mentioned Mitchell, another one. Good footballer. Maybe not an elite-level footballer, but you don't need him to be. You just need him to be a 7 out of 10 left-back, because you've got players littered throughout your team that can give you the 8 and 9 out of 10 performances. You know, you continue down through the league. There's obviously nobody at City, nobody at Arsenal. Our left-backs are Scottish and Greek. Villa's are French and Spanish. Tottenham's is Italian. Chelsea don't have Chilwell, like you said. Didn't have a good year, but still, if Shaw wasn't going to be fit and you wanted someone that was used to being in the squad, had the experience level, and is a proven performer. Like, whatever about Chilwell, he has proven himself for England on multiple occasions. Lewis Hall, like I said.
Even Dan Burn, for God's sake.
Dan Burn. I mean, just to have a left back. Just to have a left back. Even, why not just have brought Branthwaite? I know he's a centre-back, but at least he's left-footed. Like, you had him in the squad pre-tournament. Why not bring him along? Why not? If you're going to take gambles, if you're going to look at somebody for a run in the team who maybe isn't proven, but potentially could offer you what you need, which is overlapping, good crossing ability, why not Alfie Doughty? Like, I know he was in a Luton team that conceded a ton of goals, but he was easily one of their two best players, along with Barkley. And he is a consistent, overlapping, crossing threat. And he's an excellent crosser of the ball. Alfie Doughty provides really good service. And look, I know you're kind of scraping the barrel there when you're looking down at the team in 18th in the league and saying, well, what about this fella who's 24 and only has 1 year in the Premier League under his belt? But it's better than playing Kieran Trippier out of position. He had a much better season than Trippier did. And again, provides consistent quality. Like, in a really poor team, he got 8 assists in the league from left back. Like, he would have, even as an option off the bench, he would have given you something. Even if it was just a case where you look at it and you go, right, we're bringing Shaw, we're pretty certain he's going to miss the group stage. But we've got a pretty easy group. Like, the group wasn't drawn the night before the tournament. You've known the group for months. You knew who you had. You could look at their teams and think, there isn't really a great right winger in any of those teams. So why not just bring Doughty as the backup to get us through the group stage? And then when Luke Shaw comes back, we introduce Luke Shaw. Or if we go up against a top-level team, which you don't know before the tournament what you're going to get in the knockouts, and you don't trust Doughty because maybe it's Musiala or somebody, and you're like, do you know what? I don't really fancy that matchup for him. Maybe just bring in Joe Gomez then, who you're bringing as a centre-back but can cover across, or shift Walker across. Like, he's just made consistent bad decisions in terms of what he's done with his squad. And then we've talked the attack, we've talked the defence, but the midfield hasn't functioned well either. So the first 2 games he starts with Rice and Trent. Rice is a decent passer with time and space. Trent is an incredible passer of the ball. Neither of them are comfortable receiving the ball with their backs to play. Trent, because he's never done it before, because he's been a fullback since he was 15. And Rice, because he's just not that technically gifted. So neither of them are comfortable, which means you get an awful lot of backwards and sideways stuff if anybody presses them or they feel like they're being pressed. You've got nobody in there that plays on the half turn and can move the ball in one touch and get it moving. Now, Mainu does offer that. Wharton offers it to a higher level. But his choice when he was leaving Trent out was Conor Gallagher.
The worst choice.
The worst choice. If we are ranking the players in the England squad on technical ability, obviously the goalkeepers at the bottom of the barrel. So we just remove them and we just look at the outfield players, of whom there are, I believe, 23. Lewis Dunk is probably the only player with a lower technical level than Conor Gallagher. And that might even be...
I was going to say, Lewis.
Dunk.
Yeah, that's it, Dunk. Maybe not after last season, but before that.
But how do you look at a group of Rice, Trent, Gallagher, Wharton, and Mainu and think, you know what? The pairing I'm going to roll out here is Gallagher and Rice. Gallagher plays for Chelsea as a 10, and he has good attributes. He's got an endless engine. He works really hard for the team. He makes clever runs. He times things well. But he offers very little on the ball. And you need someone that offers a ton on the ball, which is why you push Trent in there in the first place. And like I've said this before, to me, the England team should be quite easy to pick. Now, there's no question Trent is the best right back in the world. But if you don't want to play him there, okay, fine. You're going to lose out in quality. But if you want to play Walker there, that's your decision. Guehi and Stones, obviously. Of this group, Joe Gomez is clearly the best option for left back by a country mile, unless Shaw is fit. But the midfield, I mean, Rice and Wharton should be really obvious. Declan Rice is best as a box-to-box midfielder, and Wharton is outstanding at sitting in there and just running the game. And he's solid defensively, and you get the most out of Declan Rice by allowing him to press high up the field, to have kind of a roaming defensive role where he can go and try and shut things down and win the ball, and he's not tethered to the middle of the pitch. We saw that as a major flaw with Arsenal this past season, that when he was tethered to the middle of the pitch, teams were running into the channels. And when they freed him up from that and let him kind of cover across, he was much better, they were much better. And then you play Jude as your 10. Gordon on the left is the natural and obvious pick, Kane up front. And then unfortunately it does come down to, do you want Saka or do you want Foden? You can't have both. So, like, that's the smart move.
Well, for me,
one of them. And then you have the other one to come off the bench as a potential game changer.
Yeah, it's a stranger. For me, I'd revert back to the back three. If I've got a Gareth Southgate beer goggles on and somewhat realistic, Pickford picks himself. Walker, Stones, Guehi back three, which isn't great because you'd probably want a natural left-footed person, but Branthwaite doesn't exist, obviously. Trent right wing back because he's never going to play right back because Gareth Southgate is a championship manager. In mine, with Gareth goggles on, I'd say Rice and Bellingham, which I don't think would be great. But in a back three, you let Stones progress the ball a bit more. Trent can progress the ball from his natural position. Saka left wing back, but really he's just playing left wing. Then Trent can kind of rotate and be a right back at times. And then Harry Kane with Gordon and Palmer behind him if Foden's missing next game. But at the minute, I mean, Foden doesn't deserve to start anyway. But I'd say Palmer over Foden at the minute. But yeah, it's going to be a mess whoever you pick. But yeah, I'm not sure.
The Saka thing at left wing back is definitely interesting. I think the calls for him to play as a left back
that's too far.
Are silly.
Yeah.
But I do think as a wing back where you can just say to him, look, just go and attack. Don't worry about it. We're going to sit a back three and we're going to sit two in front. I would, I love a back three. So I'd be very happy to roll out there with say, Gomez and Guehi either side of Stones.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would go Gomez on the left just to have more pace behind Saka. And I'd sit Rice and Wharton in front. And I'd just say to Trent and Saka, just go. These five are going to just sit. And Rice will go box to box. But the other four, that's my defensive base. Wharton in front, Stones as the middle centre-back, and then Guehi and Gomez, or Guehi and Konza, or Guehi and Walker, whichever way you want to do it. They're going to do the defensive work. We're good. Rice can go box to box, and you two just get as high and wide as you can and put service in. And then have Bellingham running from midfield. So teams are going to look up and they're going to see Jude Bellingham and Declan Rice powering forward from midfield while Wharton sits. And then you go Kane, and I would go Gordon over Foden, over Palmer. Unless you go Bowen. Bowen might even be a more natural pick because he's got experience playing to the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And just have that kind of pacey finisher type. That's probably why it would be Bowen. That pacey finisher, first time kind of, instinct kind of guy in there with Kane who can get on the end of things, who can make runs into the channel, who can play on to flick-ons by Kane. Kane, we know, is great at dropping deep. And if Kane is dropping deep, and taking the ball in. And he's got Rice and Bellingham running beyond him. He's got both wing-backs running down the flanks. And he's got Bowen running in behind. Now he's got all the options in the world. And the same goes for Wharton. If he's looking up and he's got all these options, it's easy for him. But Southgate is making it hard for all of these players. And there's not one England player outside of the two centre-backs and the goalkeeper who, let's be fair, weren't tested all that much anyway, who come out of that group stage with any kind of credit.
No, that's the thing. I mean, I was on TikTok and it was a Goldbridge rant, so I had to comment on it. And I put that team in I mentioned there, and it's got loads of people saying, where's Mainoo, where's Mainoo, where's Mainoo? And I know it's obviously got Man United bias because it's a Goldbridge thing. It's just like, he's 18. This team should be built around, well, this generation should have been built around Kane, Trent, maybe Foden in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, Saka maybe less, so I think Saka you can kind of plug and play a bit more. But as a generation, I think his flaws are there for everyone to see. But he's probably the most unique threat England have in this tournament. No one else, like, you can mention like a Theo Hernandez for France, but he's ultimately a normal left back, but he goes up and down.
He's a north and south winger. He's an up and down the touchline, great ball carrier, great crosser, but he can't pass the ball like Trent. Do you know?
Unless Belgium whacking Kevin De Bruyne right back, no one's matching that.
No one's matching it. That's it. No one has that. And like the Mainoo thing is funny because he's a very, very talented player. But for what England need, Wharton is the better fit.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Both on and off the ball. Like, even just from a physical point of view, if you have Rice and Mainoo in there, you're going to have issues against good teams. But look, it is what it is. And England, they better figure out something quickly because they've got a game coming up tomorrow. On Sunday. So yeah, they may get their act together. Right. Let's quickly run through the bracket and we'll do quick predictions then and see where we land. So Spain, we'll just start at the top and work down. Spain versus Georgia. Who you got?
It's got to be Spain, but Georgia getting as far as a miracle, so yeah, Spain.
Yeah, incredible achievement by Georgia, but Spain to win. Germany, Denmark.
I think it'll be a bit of a frustrating mess, but I think Germany will do it narrowly.
We'll keep going bracket by bracket. So those two teams would play each other in the quarterfinal. So Spain versus Germany. Who do you have?
Spain for my bet.
Okay, so you've now got Spain as a semi-finalist. I'm going to pick Germany to get to the semi-final. Portugal versus Slovenia.
Hey, you got to pick Portugal.
And France versus Belgium.
France should win, but we could do this podcast with the French team. So I'll pick France by logic, but it genuinely wouldn't surprise me if they bottle it.
100% we could. 100% we could. And if we were living in France and dealing with the French media coverage, that's exactly what we would be doing. And if not for the fact that he has won a World Cup, I'd imagine Deschamps would be under enormous amounts of pressure. But I still think he'll go after this tournament regardless. So I would have Portugal, France going through as well. Who are you picking between Portugal and France to meet Spain in the semi-final of your bracket?
I mean, if France don't massively improve, I think Portugal will do it. It's just Ronaldo tried to start pad against George, not mattered, which was class. I'll pick Portugal to be different.
I'll go France. I'll go France. So you've got a Spain-Portugal Iberian semi-final.
Beautiful.
And I've got France-Germany. Into the bottom half then. Romania versus the Netherlands.
They've been awful, haven't they? And I am talking about the Netherlands. You know, there's always one that gets to the quarterfinal, isn't there? I'm going to pick Romania.
It did cross my mind. It really did. But I'm going to go with the Netherlands. I just think they'll have a little bit too much quality for them, and I think we might see Virgil take proper command in the next game. So I'll go Netherlands. Austria, Turkey then.
I mean, Austria have been the best team in the tournament. It's just whether they can be the actual dark horses, or is the knockout's going to find them out? And are Turkey going to match fix again by dropping all their best players? Austria. It's got to be Austria. It's the way they played.
Right. So who are you picking then between Austria and Romania?
Austria.
Okay. I will go the Netherlands to beat Austria in what will be the second time they play each other. I don't know why. I have no logic to it. I have no real confidence in it, but I'll go with the Netherlands. So I've got the Netherlands as a semi-finalist. England versus Slovakia.
Genuinely wouldn't surprise me if it's another Iceland situation, but I'll pick England.
And then Switzerland versus Italy.
I don't think Italy have been great from what I've seen, but I'll pick them just because I like the national anthem.
Okay, I've got Italy as well. So, England versus Italy then. Quarterfinal in Dusseldorf. Repeat or replay of the last final of the Euros. Who are you picking?
England should win on paper. They're more set. Don't have two left-footed centre-backs. But they're just bottle jobs. I'll pick Italy.
I've got Italy as well. So now you have Spain versus Portugal in a semi-final. Who are you picking?
Spain for the money.
And then you have Austria versus Italy in the second semi-final.
Oh, God. I think it might be a step too far for Austria, but I'll pick Italy.
Yeah, I've got Netherlands, Italy, and I'll pick Italy as well. In the first one, I have France against Germany. And this is the one I'm really not sure on. Do I go with Germany given they're at home? It's their tournament.
Who did they ball against in 06?
In 06, I'm almost certain they lost to Italy in the semi-final. 2006.
I think it was. Pretty sure it was.
I think it was as well. It was. They lost 2-0 to Italy in a semi-final that took place on the 4th of July.
Kind of similar situations. I mean, Germany was... It was before their big rebuild, wasn't it? 06, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, it was. The collapse came in 08 and then they started to rebuild. The Italians, though, were coming off Calciopoli and were in chaos and didn't know what the future was going to be for a lot of their clubs. And it kind of galvanized them. Do you know what? I think I picked France on two-footed earlier in the week. I'm going to pick Germany, though. So I've got a Germany-Italy final, and you've got a Spain-Italy final. So the only ultimate difference we have is that you picked Spain to beat Germany, I picked Germany to beat Spain. So Spain versus Italy in the final, do I need to ask who you're picking?
We back our boys, we go Italy. 2 in a row. I've never would have bet in my life, so they're not winning.
That's a fair point. But you are the cursed better.
Yeah.
Germany versus Italy. I think I like the Italian defense more, but I like the German midfield more. And I'm not sold on the German attack if they've got Havertz, but I'm not sold on the Italian attack.
It's got 0-0 all over that.
It's got a penalty shootout just written on.
One shot on target for 90 minutes.
If it goes to penalties, though, it's advantage Italy because they've got Donnarumma. Now, Manuel Neuer is obviously a great player in his own right, but he is significantly past his best. Do you know what? I'm going to back the Germans to win on home soil. So I'll go Germany to win the competition. You have Italy to win the competition, but largely because you're a curse. If you hadn't bet on it, I do think you'd have picked Spain.
Spain would be out in the group. If I put proper money, Spain would be out in the group. Spain have been the best team in the tournament with Austria, I'd say. So if they can take that in, I mean, logically, It's just if the young lads can keep performing, because, well, Yamal might have to go to bed if it goes to extra.
That's the thing. This is the thing. Like, they're playing a 16-year-old. Right, we will leave it there. Matchit will be back tomorrow to report from Germany, and we can make fun of them for missing today. So it'll be myself and Carl tomorrow. It'll be Guy and Carl, I think, on Sunday. And then we'll be back running through next week as well, trying to figure out what to do on days where there is no games. But we'll come up with something. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.